Please help me welcome the multi-talented Judy Butterfly Farlow.
I think that'll work. All right. Everybody doing good? Yes. Fantastic. Somebody asked me tonight, was I in a good mood or how was I feeling? And I was like, I am absolutely terrific. Now, I'll tell y'all why. If you see my hands, they're dirty. I have washed them and washed them and washed them, but I just discovered that black mulch doesn't come off of your fingers. It just kind of stays there, right? But what I'm so happy about is it's spring, and in the back of my car, I have got mulch, dirt, and flowers. And tomorrow I'm going to get dirty in the yard because it's spring. Woohoo! And that's the story I'm going to tell you. Easter's coming up soon. And for a lot of you, if you're like me and you've got kids, they're going to say, why do we do that for Easter? So this is going to be one of the stories. Spring. Now the children love Jack Frost, and they love snow, and they love the north wind, but winter had been long coming. It had been a long time, and they were cold, and they were tired of Jack Frost and the north wind and snow. They dreamed of spring. So as they sat by their fires, all huddled up and staying warm, they dreamed and wished for spring. Spring was the most beautiful of all of the fairies. When she came, the world changed. It opened up. Oh, you could look at her and see how beautiful she was. Her eyes were bluer than the bluest sky. Her golden ringlets had flowers all among them. Her gown was of gossamer, all the colors of the rainbow. And where she reached out her hand, the wind blew warm, and the flowers began to bud, and where she stepped, the grass began to grow, and flowers began to bloom up from the ground. The children longed for spring. And so, when they thought it was time that she may appear in the meadow, because that's where she always came first, the children went running out to the meadow. But they were greeted by Jack Frost and the north wind. Spring was not there. And so with their hearts down-laden, they went back home and got beside the fire again and wrapped up to stay warm. Several days went by, and they were so anxious, they went running back again to the meadow. But sadly, spring was still not there. They were nipped in the nose by Jack Frost and had to pull their coats up tight because the north wind was still blowing hard. They went again a third time. Spring was still not there, and the children gave up. They thought, spring is never going to come. And so they stayed, closed up in their homes. And spring came, unknowns to them, to the meadow. And as she walked through, the meadow burst open. Oh, sun shone brighter. Where she reached out her hands, the flowers began to grow. The trees began to bloom, those little small, green, delicate leaves. But where are the children? Spring wanted to know. She loved watching the children. The little animals that would come out when spring came, they loved the little children too. Oh, they loved Betty. Betty was one of their favorites because she had pigtails, and when she would run, her pigtails would bounce, and the little animals would watch her and enjoy it, just watching her. They also liked little Billy. Little Billy liked to get on the ground and run and scoot himself around, and he always had patches on his knees. They loved to watch him too. All the animals wanted the children, but where were the children? The children were still at home. They didn't know that spring had come. And spring said to the animals, how can we let the children know that I'm here? The animals began to think, and spring began to think, how could they let the children know that spring had finally arrived? Someone needs to go tell them. That's what we need to do. We need to go tell the children that spring is here. Spring looked at Robin and said, Robin, would you fly? Would you fly to the village and let the children know that I'm here? Robin fluffed her wings and said, oh, I would love to, but But you see, I have to hurry and build my nest because I have eggs that I need to lay. Okay, who else can I ask? Spring thought about it and then thought, Fox. Oh, Fox would be a good one. Fox could run fast, and Fox could run into the village and tell the children that Spring was there. And so Spring asked Fox, would he go? Fox shook his head and said no. He would go, but you see, people were afraid of Fox. And if the men saw Fox there, why, they'd shoot him because they would think that he was after the chickens. He wasn't there to let them know that Spring had come. Fox said he couldn't do it. What a quandary. Spring looked around. Oh, I know Bear. Bear would be a good one to go. Bear could go into, and people wouldn't shoot at Bear. Bear, he stood up and said, well, I'd be glad to go, but, I've been hibernating all winter long, and now I'm very, very hungry, and I need to eat. You'll need to find someone else. Spring definitely was in a quandary now. Who in the world could go? She looked at all the animals around and finally spotted Rabbit. Rabbit stood there very small and kind of shaking in his place. She looked at him and she said, Rabbit, you can run fast. Would you go into the village and tell the children that I'm here? Rabbit was very afraid because, Rabbit's very timid, and he shook a little bit, but he wanted to help Spring. He wanted to help her. He wanted to let the children know. But then he said, I can't go. Why, if I go, the dogs will chase me. I can't go. Oh, but I have an idea. Spring said, you can go when it's dark. Then the dogs won't see you, and you can go very, very quietly, and you can let the children know that I'm here. Rabbit thought about this a few moments, scratched his whiskers. But wait a minute. If I go at night and it's dark, the children are asleep. How are they going to know? How am I going to tell them that you're here? It is a thought. It is a question. Shaking Rabbit's ears and shaking his head, he thought about it, and all the animals got together, trying to figure out how they could do that. And then they came up with a wonderful idea. All the animals worked together. They went and they gathered very, very fresh grapevines. And they began to weave them in and out until they made a basket that fit perfectly on Rabbit's back. And then all the little animals, the baby rabbits and the squirrels, they went running through the grass, and they began to pick the new green grass. And they put that in the basket that fit on Rabbit's back. And then the animals went and each of them got a flower. They got a violet and a jonquil, daffodils, and they went and put those in Rabbit's basket with the grass. And then each of the birds with a loving heart gave one of their eggs. The robin gave its little blue egg, and the speckled egg of the robin. Even the tiniest hummingbird egg got put in that basket. And Rabbit waited with his treasures on his back until dark came. And there he went, hopping off to the village to let the children know that spring had come. He went to Betty's house first. She had a beautiful front porch. He hopped up to that front porch, and from his back, he took some of that green grass and put it into a little small, like a nest almost. And inside that nest, he put a flower, and then he put one of those bird eggs. And then he hopped off to the next house. He went to Billy's house and did the same thing. Billy didn't have a porch, but he did have a front door and a stoop by that door. And he did the same thing. He took that green grass, made a little nest of it, and inside that nest, he put an egg and put a flower right there by the door. And he did that to each child's house in turn until it was almost morning, and he was exhausted from all his hard work, and he went hopping back to the meadow. When the children woke up, Betty went out to the porch and looked, And there was that green new grass and a bird's egg and a flower, and she knew spring had come. Billy did the same thing. He went out there and there was that grass and the egg and the flower, and he knew that spring had come. And each in turn, each child went out and found that treasure of that nest of green grass and egg and flower, and they each knew that spring had come. And they went running as fast as they could possibly run out there to the meadow to play with the animals and the fresh grass and the new flowers and to see spring. They knew spring had come. That had been their message. And spring, she was so grateful to Rabbit that from that day until this, he is in charge of letting the children know that Easter has come. And that's how he got to be known as the Easter Bunny. That's the end of that story.